Even preceding landfall, things loved freely once, ignoring gender. Blind desire made pond slime fish, turned fish to apes with sex, life's glorious engine, churning in the mud. The animals remember. Dolphins still rotate their matings between their own sex and its reverse, their raptures echoing for miles. On land, the first societies, great herds of she-beasts raised their young together without males whose part in reproduction was unknown. The women licked and groomed each other with men watching, circling round. In the beginning, then, 3 million years of motherhood. The word came later, and the word was power, was patriarchy. Firstborn children squirmed on altars of a father god. The word was law. In Sumer, women scorning men had teeth crushed with burned bricks. Law, once conceived, applied to everything. Leviticus condemned most sexual practice as unclean, including that between two men. This was designed to snub the Canaanites, whose male priests practiced sodomy. Had they been cannibals instead, how different might things be? We gasped upon Devonian beaches, huddled under Neolithic stars, spat blood through powdered teeth, staining each other as we kissed. Always we loved. How could we otherwise, when you are so like me, my sweet, but in a different guise? We loved, while great Mediterranean cultures flourished, their homoerotic urges troubling them not at all. Regarding man-boy love as civilised, the Greeks and Romans made it thus a badge of class and rank within their careful edifice of power. The Spartan army ventured further. Male love was enforced, producing soldiers who'd defend their frontline lovers to the death. Demanding tougher breeds, they exposed infants to the elements, particularly girls. Perhaps because of this, by the time Rome invaded, there were only 16 Spartans left. Corinth's transvestite troops aside, this usage was unique. We were creators. Homer sought in verse to hug Achilles' shade, while on her isle exquisite Sappho reminisced of myrrh poured on her lover's head, of girls upon soft mats with all they most desired beside them. Yet this tolerance could not endure the rise of Christianity, which quite ignored Christ's love for outcasts and instead embraced moral severity. Defining sex as base, an obstacle to faith, St. Paul named same-sex love for the first time as sin. Sin. Was that its name? Which stole a kiss behind the interlocking shields of war. Sin that made Sappho weep and write, I have not had one word from her. With baby blood upon their hands, they saw our love and named it sin. Thomas Aquinas, by the 13th century, had systemised degrees of vice, including copulation with an undue sex. Since, in the high dark ages, such pronouncements were quite readily made law, burnings occurred, beheadings, bodies twisting slowly in the breeze. Although to hang for sodomy alone was rare, such charges loaned vendettas weight. Knights Templar, charged with sodomy, had instead pressed Philip of France for debts he couldn't pay. The Pope, owing Philip in turn, arranged the Templars' persecution. Then, as now, our love was used conveniently, as a smear. As the Renaissance blossomed, cities gradually returned, and in their alleys our subculture thrived, a pale, night-blooming flower. Despite church savagery, an improved social climate once more brought forth our muse. Michelangelo gazed heavenwards into a crowded Sistine sky and told his dear Tommaso that though vain, malignant hordes attribute what their grosser wills obey, yet should this love, this faith, pure joys afford. How could he know? Upon his pallet there, creating heaven from a hell of cramped discomfort, chiselled trembling on the brink of freeing David's shoulder from chill rock. How could he know what trials the future held? How gross its will. My love, the vain, malignant hordes are with us still. The 16th century favoured cross-dressed men in women's roles, forging a bond between our culture and theatre that endures today. That era's greatest dramatist, in sonnets to his benefactor, Mr. W.H., proclaimed his love more ringingly than he portrayed the ruin of dynasties. In time, such friendship, passionately expressed, became the custom, and society, having no great desire to punish what was then a harmless commonplace, having no word for homosexuality, could draw platonic veils across our love and look away. Nowhere was this more evident than with the ladies of Llangollen, women living openly together in eccentric isolation, objects of suspicion yet also of fascinated awe, amusing in their tantrums, cherishing the picturesque. They scattered rosebuds round their cottage, banished Wordsworth when he slighted it in verse. Without them, history's diminished. We grew, but in obscurity. Emily Dickinson described her lover's breast as fit for pearls, her words unread, her voice unheard till she was dead. Amidst his dust-tanned boys, Walt Whitman dreamed a new city of friends, builded from tender glances in the hired hand scrum. So, Shakespeare dipped a quill into his troubled soul, while Eleanor and Sarah fired their servants and nailed poems to trees. On Emily's pure heart, her lover's weight a night. Who'll care, my love? Who'll guard such fragile gems as these? Only within enlightened cultures could we breathe. Natalie Barney's salon scandalised and entertained, where Gertrude Stein took tea and Mata Hari, naked, rode jewelled stallions. Outrageous Natalie, who, spurned by Renee Vivian, delivered herself in a satin coffin to the poet's door, while Paris smiled. Elsewhere, in Leipzig, 1869, one K.M. Benkert first referred to homosexuality. Industrial England's view that all might be explained by science prompted doctors to declare us merely ill, not friends or sinners after all. The molly houses rattled in the wind. The climate changed, as Oscar Wilde learned to his cost. Too fond of working lads, of feasting with the panthers. His beloved's father, a marquis, denounced him as a sodomite. Pressing for slander recklessly, Wilde was exposed, condemned to Reading jail, then exiled in disgrace. The era closed with Wilde's mauve 90s fading to grey, and yet contained the seeds of something proud, humane. From Germany before the century's end came the first protests against laws on sodomy. Emancipation had begun. Such times, born to Tchaikovsky's guns that could not drown his whispering heart. Such times that closed with our first faltering steps to liberty, and I marched as I loved, my dear, with thee, always with thee. Dignity marched abreast with shame. Disqualified from open love, we rendezvoused in squalor, all we were allowed. Our culture, embracing Colette, writing so perfectly with Missy's name upon her anklet, also came to know dark hallways, reeking lavatories, reminded in our tenderness of our equivalence with shit. The First World War, ironically, allowed new closeness. Young men lived and died together in the foreign mud. There, Wilfred Owen gave his love a sonnet and disc of identity, bidding his heartbeat kiss it night and day until the name grew blurred, fading away. Alas, war brought not comradeship alone, and in defeated Germany, the crippling war debt was a loam where fascist flowers thrived horribly. By 1933 we were already targets of the Reich, but still did not suspect how far we had to fall. In slaughterhouses labelled with pink triangles, our thousands died. The showers, they say, held bodies piled as if the strong and desperate had climbed on lovers' backs to flee the gas, betraying at the last our love, the thing we thought they couldn't take. Can you imagine? Can you? Darling, do not weep. 'Twas just a dream, a nightmare gathered on the century's brow, and if it comes again, I'll hold you tight till dawn, as best as I know how. As day broke over Europe, troops returned, some bringing newfound ways of life to settle on the Barbary coast, in Portsmouth or New York. New worlds seemed possible, and Ginsberg howled against a state that called us communists, not satisfied with branding us diseased. The Mattachine Society, America's first group for homosexual men, was formed in 1950, followed by the female-oriented Daughters of Bilitis. Meanwhile, England saw campaigns for homosexual rights, while Orton wrote of dark young men with new and dangerous moralities. In 1967, Britain legalised the sexual act between consenting adult males, while gradually across America states came to modify their laws. Though still harassed, we were yet jubilant. The first rung in our climb achieved. We splashed in Hockney's pools and danced to Brian Epstein's band. On Friday, June the 27th, 1969, routine police raids on the Stonewall Inn in Greenwich Village sparked the riots from which gay liberation sprang. Did Judy Garland's death, or did 5,000 years of history propel us through the streets and with our anger fire the night? Remember, running in between the blazing trash cans holding hands, laughing above the sirens, unafraid and pure. We knew that freedom could be won, that nothing could prevent it. We were sure, my love. We were so sure. That was before the virus. AIDS changed everything. Though first affecting heterosexuals, who comprise 9/10 of those afflicted thus worldwide, the church and press spoke of gay plague. And we, so close to being recognised as fully human, were instead transformed to medieval bogeymen. A human tragedy thus licensed human bigotry. Policemen claimed to speak for God, describing persons having AIDS as swilling in a self-made cesspit, while Councillor Brownhill, a Conservative, recalled an earlier final solution offering to gas the queers, and Margaret Thatcher praised their forthrightness. She let a clause pass into law that her chief minister for local government described as being aimed at banishing all trace of homosexuality. The act itself, all gay relationships, even the abstract concept would be gone, a word torn from the dictionary. Shall we be scapegoats, as they used the Templars, Canaanites and Jews, or will AIDS force abandonment of prejudice, of furtive silence over sex to save their very lives? As we approach the future, will utopia's spires hove into view, or death camp chimney stacks? My love, I wish I knew. While life endures, we'll love. And afterwards, if what they say is true, I'll be refused a heaven crammed with popes, policemen, fundamentalists, and burn instead, quite happily, with Sappho, Michelangelo, and you, my love. I'd burn throughout